When I first met my girlfriend's mother, she smirked at me and said, "You're wasting yourself on someone her age." I laughed it off, but deep down, I knew she saw something neither of us wanted to admit. I still remember the first time I met her. Not my girlfriend, her mother. It was a late Saturday afternoon, and the air outside still carried the warmth of the fading sun. I stood on the front step of their home, shifting my weight nervously, holding a bouquet of flowers I thought would make a good impression. When the door finally opened, it wasn't my girlfriend who stood there. It was her mother. She was nothing like what I had pictured in my mind. Where my girlfriend carried a kind of youthful playfulness, her mother carried herself with an easy grace, like someone who didn't need to demand attention because it already belonged to her. She had soft lines at the corners of her eyes, but they didn't age her. They gave her face a kind of warmth and depth. Her hair, swept back casually, caught the light like polished chestnut. And then she smirked at me. It wasn't unkind, but it wasn't quite welcoming either. It was the kind of smirk that made you feel like you were already being measured, weighed, maybe even teased before you'd said a word. "You must be him," she said, her voice smooth, low, carrying a hint of amusement. I nodded, fumbling for words, offering the flowers as if they could bridge whatever invisible distance she was already creating. Her hand brushed mine as she took them, firm yet soft, and I felt a strange warmth run through me. It was ridiculous. I was here for her daughter after all. But in that fleeting contact, something unsettled me. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. The house smelled faintly of tea leaves and something sweet cooling in the kitchen. The late afternoon light filtered through thin curtains, painting the living room in shades of gold. It felt homely, safe, yet I couldn't shake the strange tension lingering in the air. I tried to compose myself as I stepped inside, but I could feel her eyes on me, steady and unhurried. It wasn't the way strangers looked at each other. It was sharper, more deliberate, like she wanted to see if I'd flinch under her gaze. When my girlfriend finally came down the stairs, cheerful and lighthearted, her mother's smirk softened, but it didn't vanish. Even when she turned to greet her daughter, I felt as though part of her attention never left me. At the dinner table later, I would understand that look better. But in that first moment, standing in the doorway, with her hand brushing mine and that smirk lingering on her lips, I felt something I wasn't ready to name. All I knew was that this meeting, simple as it seemed, had just planted something in me that I couldn't shake off. A spark, a question, a feeling I wasn't supposed to have. Dinner that evening was complicated. Not because of the food, it was delicious, comforting, the kind of home-cooked meal that fills a table with warmth. No, the complication came from the way her mother watched me. We sat around the polished wooden table beneath a chandelier that glowed softly, its light catching the edges of wine glasses and silver cutlery. My girlfriend was lively, chattering about her classes, her friends, and the weekend plans she had mapped out for us. Her laughter bubbled up easily, and I smiled, nodding along, trying to match her brightness. But every so often, my eyes betrayed me. They shifted, against my better judgment, toward her mother. She sat across from me, her posture calm and assured. She ate slowly, deliberately, like she was never in a rush. And though she never said much, her silence spoke louder than words. Whenever I opened my mouth, I felt her gaze slide toward me, steady, assessing, like she wanted to know what lay beneath each word I spoke. At first, I thought it was just my imagination. But then, halfway through dinner, she leaned back slightly, tilting her head, her lips curling into that same smirk I had seen at the door. "You're very thoughtful when you speak," she said casually, her eyes on me, though her words were directed to no one in particular. "Not many men your age are like that." Her daughter laughed lightly. "Mom, don't start analyzing him already." I smiled awkwardly, unsure what to say. The mother didn't look away. She lifted her glass, took a slow sip, and then added almost offhandedly, "Still, sometimes I wonder if thoughtful men waste themselves too easily on people who don't understand them yet." Her words hung in the air like smoke. I felt my chest tighten. My girlfriend rolled her eyes with a playful groan. "Don't listen to her," She's always dramatic. But I couldn't shake the feeling that the comment wasn't casual. It was aimed directly at me. I shifted in my chair, heat rising under my collar, trying to laugh it off. The meal carried on, the clinking of silverware and soft murmur of conversation filling the space. Yet every time I looked up, I caught her eyes on me, calm and knowing, like she could see more than I wanted her to. Later, as I reached for the serving dish, my hand brushed against hers. It was accidental, innocent even, but she didn't move immediately. For a breath too long, her fingers lingered near mine, her smirk softening into something gentler, almost curious. I pulled back quickly, pretending nothing had happened. My girlfriend was still talking, oblivious, but my thoughts were no longer on the food, or even on her. They were tangled in the puzzle of her mother, this woman who seemed to see straight through me, and who, with a single remark, had left me questioning what I was really doing at that table. Later that night, after dinner plates had been cleared and laughter had faded upstairs, I found myself in the kitchen helping her mother tidy up. My girlfriend had disappeared into her room, humming something behind closed doors, leaving just the two of us in the dim light of the house. The kitchen was warm, the faint scent of dish soap mixing with the sweetness of the dessert we'd just eaten. Cabinets glowed softly under the underlighting, casting a gentle glow on the counter where stacks of plates waited to be dried. I reached to grab a glass from her hand, and in that small motion, our fingers brushed. It should have been nothing, a tiny, forgettable accident. But the way her fingers lingered, just for a fraction longer than necessary, made it feel like everything. I glanced up quickly. She was already watching me, not with that teasing smirk this time, but with a quieter expression, something thoughtful, almost vulnerable. "You don't have to help, you know," she said softly, turning back to the sink. "Most people your age would have escaped to the living room by now." I gave a small laugh, trying to steady myself. "I don't mind. Besides, it feels right to help when I've been welcomed to your table." She set down a plate, rinsed her hands, and leaned lightly against the counter. The motion was so casual, yet the closeness of the space made it feel intimate. The hum of the dishwasher filled the silence. Then she asked, her voice low, "What is it you really want in life?" The question caught me off guard. It wasn't the kind of polite small talk adults made with their children's partners. It was heavier, searching. Her eyes held mine, unflinching, as though she wouldn't let me escape with a shallow answer. I hesitated. "I don't know if I can answer that yet," I admitted. "I guess I want to find something real, something that lasts." For the first time that evening, her smirk was gone entirely. She looked at me with an almost pained softness, her lips parting as if she might say more, but she didn't. Instead, she picked up a towel, handed it to me, and together we dried the last of the dishes in silence. But that silence wasn't empty. It was thick, filled with all the things we weren't saying. Every time our hands moved near each other, I felt the pull of that unspoken connection. A tension that wasn't just curiosity anymore. It was something deeper, something dangerous. When we finally finished, she placed the towel down neatly, her hand brushing mine one last time. "Thank you," she said quietly, her voice softer than it had been all evening. And then she turned and walked away, leaving me alone in the kitchen, staring at my own hands as if they still carried the warmth of her touch. That night, lying awake, I couldn't stop replaying her question. "What is it you really want in life?" I wasn't sure yet, but I had the feeling her eyes would haunt my answer. Over the next few weeks, I found myself at their house more often. Sometimes it was planned weekend dinners, movie nights, quick visits before heading out with my girlfriend. Other times, it just happened by chance. A ride to pick something up, a brief stop after class. And with every visit, it became harder to ignore the presence that lingered in the background of it all, her mother. It wasn't that she did anything obvious. She never said a word out of line, never crossed into territory that could be called improper. But it was in the subtleties, the way she moved through the room, the way her eyes would find mine across the space and hold there, longer than anyone else's. One Sunday afternoon, we were all in the living room. My girlfriend was scrolling through her phone on the couch, telling me about a new show she wanted us to watch. But I couldn't stop noticing her mother by the window, watering a row of plants. The sunlight streamed through the curtains, catching strands of her hair and the quiet concentration on her face. At one point, she glanced over her shoulder, and our eyes locked. She didn't smile, didn't smirk this time. She just looked at me, steady, searching. My girlfriend's voice faded into the background, and for a moment, it was only the two of us, caught in an invisible thread across the room. Another time, when I was about to leave, she stepped closer than necessary to fix my collar. "You always rush out the door," she said lightly, her fingers brushing the side of my neck as she adjusted the fabric. The touch was fleeting, innocent if anyone asked, but it sent a shiver down my spine. I tried to laugh it off, mumbling something about being forgetful. But inside, I felt my pulse racing. And yet, it wasn't just the touches or the glances. It was the way conversations shifted when she was around. With my girlfriend, things felt light, surface level, like the kind of fun you have before life really begins. But with her mother, even the smallest exchanges seemed heavier, layered with meaning. A question about school became a question about who I was. A casual comment about the weather became an opening for silence that lingered, charged. I started to realize something uncomfortable. I was waiting for those moments, looking forward to them, even a hand brushing mine when passing a cup. Her voice calling my name just a little softer than necessary. The smell of her perfume when she walked by. And with every small thing, the tension grew. Not in some wild, uncontrollable way, but like water quietly rising behind a dam, steady, inevitable. I told myself it was nothing, just imagination, just me overthinking. But deep down, I knew better, because every time she walked into the room, I felt it. My heart caught between where it was supposed to be and where it was slowly, silently drifting. It happened on a quiet evening, the kind where the air felt cooler than the day before and the world outside seemed hushed. I had stepped out onto the porch after dinner, needing a breath of air, needing space from the weight pressing in on me. The wooden boards creaked softly beneath my feet as I leaned against the railing, staring into the yard lit faintly by the porch light. I hadn't expected her to follow. But a moment later, the door eased open and her mother stepped outside. She carried no jacket, just her presence, calm yet charged with something unspoken. The soft glow from inside framed her in light, before she let the door shut gently behind her. "Couldn't sleep?" she asked, her voice quiet, almost playful. I shook my head. "Just needed some air." She nodded, then walked over to stand beside me. The wood creaked again as she leaned against the railing too, our shoulders brushing. Just barely, but enough that I felt the warmth of her body through the cool air. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The night hummed with the sound of crickets in the grass, a dog barking faintly in the distance. I could feel my pulse racing, every second stretching out like an eternity. Then she broke the silence. "You listen," she said softly. "That's rare." I glanced at her, unsure of what she meant. She was staring out at the yard, not at me, her expression unreadable. "Most men," she continued, her voice low and steady, "talk more than they hear. They want to impress, to fill the space with words. But you," she finally turned, her eyes meeting mine, steady and piercing. "You make people feel like they're worth hearing." I swallowed, my throat suddenly dry. "That doesn't seem like a bad thing." "It isn't." She paused, and then, almost as if admitting something against her will, she added, "Sometimes I envy my daughter, not for her youth, but for having someone who listens the way you do." The words landed heavily between us. I froze, unsure if I had really heard her right. My chest tightened, my heart thudding louder in the stillness. I wanted to answer, but no words came. I wanted to step back, to create distance, but I didn't move. Instead, I stood there, feeling her shoulder against mine, the warmth of her so close it left me breathless. She turned her gaze back toward the yard, her jaw tightening slightly, as if she regretted saying it out loud. But the truth was already hanging in the air, impossible to take back. I finally whispered, You shouldn't say that. She gave the faintest smile, though it was tinged with sadness. I know. And then we both fell silent again, standing shoulder to shoulder on that quiet porch, caught in the weight of everything we hadn't said before, and everything we couldn't say now. The days after that porch conversation felt different. Something had shifted, something neither of us acknowledged out loud, but both carried in silence. I tried to pretend nothing had changed, to focus on my girlfriend the way I always had. She laughed easily, filled every space with stories, plans, and chatter. On the surface, things looked fine, but beneath it I felt a growing distance. Her laughter no longer reached me the way it used to. The small things I once found charming now felt shallow. And whenever her mother entered the room, that distance felt impossible to ignore. One morning, sunlight spilled into the dining room as we ate a quick breakfast before heading out. My girlfriend was scrolling through her phone, giggling at something she wanted to show me. I smiled, nodding along, but my eyes betrayed me. They drifted to her mother. She was at the counter, quietly making coffee, her movements slow and deliberate. Steam curled upward from the cup as she poured. She didn't look at me, not directly, but I knew she felt my gaze. The careful restraint in her posture gave it away, like someone holding themselves back from leaning closer. When she finally did glance up, our eyes met for the briefest second. It was enough. I saw the conflict there, the same weight I carried. She looked away quickly, focusing on her coffee, but the silence between us in that crowded room said more than words ever could. Later that day, when I was alone, I kept replaying the moment. I compared the lightness of my girlfriend's attention with the depth in her mother's silence. And it became clear, the bond one was forming was not with the person I was supposed to love, but with the woman who shouldn't have crossed my thoughts at all. It was a painful clarity, because what we had, her mother and I, wasn't a game. It wasn't temptation for the sake of temptation. It was a connection rooted in something real. In the way she asked questions no one else did. In the way her touch, even the smallest brush of fingers, carried meaning. In the way her presence made the air itself feel alive. But we were both careful. She never said more. I never acted. And yet, that restraint only made it heavier. Every glance, every pause, was filled with the ache of what we weren't allowing ourselves. That night, as I lay in bed, I realized I couldn't keep going like this. I couldn't hold on to one relationship while secretly longing for another. Pretending only made the weight worse. I didn't know exactly how it would happen, or what words I'd use, but I knew the truth was unavoidable. Because when I looked at my girlfriend, I saw comfort. And when I looked at her mother, I saw the question that had haunted me since the first night. What is it you really want in life? And I was finally ready to admit the answer. It didn't happen all at once. Endings rarely do. But one evening, as I sat across from my girlfriend, listening to her talk about a dozen things at once, I realized my smile was no longer honest. The weight in my chest wasn't confusion anymore, it was certainty. So I told her the truth. I didn't mention her mother. I didn't mention the glances, the quiet conversations, or the feelings that had grown when they never should have. I simply told her what was real. That I cared for her, but I wasn't the right person for her future. My words stumbled at first, but as I spoke, I felt a kind of release, as if a knot I'd been carrying finally loosened. She was hurt, of course. Her laughter faded, her eyes searching mine for answers I couldn't give. And when the silence stretched between us, I knew the relationship had reached its end. Not in anger, not in betrayal, but in the quiet truth that sometimes love isn't where we expect it to be. In the days that followed, I stayed away. It felt strange, the sudden absence of her presence in my life. But the absence of her mother's presence weighed even heavier. I found myself missing not just her words, but the silence we had shared. The way she had looked at me, as though she understood something I hadn't yet admitted to myself. Then, one evening, it happened. I saw her mother again. Not in the house, not with her daughter nearby, but on a quiet neighborhood street as the sun slipped behind the rooftops. She was walking slowly, her hands in the pockets of her coat, the crisp autumn air turning her breath visible. For a moment I almost kept walking. maybe it would have been easier. But when she lifted her head and saw me, the smallest smile touched her lips, and I knew I couldn't. We walked toward each other, neither of us speaking right away. The crunch of fallen leaves underfoot filled the silence. Finally, she said softly, "I heard." I nodded, my throat tight. I didn't want to hurt her. "I know." Her voice carried no judgment, only understanding. She looked down for a moment, then back at me. "I thought maybe this was just passing tension. But it isn't, is it?" I shook my head. "No, it isn't." Her hand brushed mine then, tentative, almost as though asking permission. I let my fingers curl gently around hers, and the warmth of that small contact felt more certain than anything I'd known in months. We didn't rush, didn't speak of love, didn't promise more than the moment could hold. But as we walked side by side, the world quiet around us, I felt the weight lift. What had started as a spark of tension had become something real, something steady. Not stolen, not forbidden, just honest. And for the first time, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. If this story touched you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for more slow burn age gap romances. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know which moments stayed with you the most.